What is up, Guardians? It's your buddy Toot Toots here, and you are watching my YouTube channel, Twice the Toots. Thank you for stopping by this evening and checking out my commentary on Age of Triumph. Wanted to discuss the two reveals that Bungie has provided over the last 7 days. Earlier today, obviously, they went over the weekly rituals, and last week detailing the changes to the raids that we'll see for the Age of Triumph update. So the first thing to discuss about Age of Triumph is the new record book. 13 pages of achievements. It's quite large. It's the largest record book that Bungie has put forth to this game to date. The whole purpose of which is to unlock 7 new shaders, which will carry over into Destiny 2 and speak to the achievements that we have made throughout this 3-year journey. All kinds of achievements ranging from PvP and PvE activities. You think of it, you name it, I'm sure that there will be an achievement for you to unlock in regards to that record book. One thing that's, I think, good to note is that it doesn't take full completion to get all 7 shaders. Bungie's mentioned that about 7 pages will do it. And along with that, not only are you going to be able to get those shaders for Destiny 2, you'll also be able to purchase a Destiny t-shirt embroidered with your gamer tag on it. Now, you know, for some of us that might be fine. For others who have names like Pussy Eater 6969, maybe that's not something you necessarily want to be walking around in public with. However, it's still pretty cool nonetheless. One thing that won't be happening with Age of Triumph is an increase to our light levels. They're going to stay at 400 as a maximum light. I think a lot of people are disappointed by this. I know I saw a number of people talking online that a hefty increase to the light level made obvious sense. Taking it from 400 to, some people were even speculating, as high as 500 would really push the grind for a lot of Guardians. I know if you give people a light level to achieve for, that in and of itself is going to bring them back and playing every single day, constantly trying to push the light level higher and higher. That in and of itself is okay, that there's no light level increase. For me, at this point in the game, in Destiny's life cycle, I'm really just trying to be as much of a completionist as I can. But when you couple that no light level increase with the fact that there will be no new weapons in this update, I think that that's overall disappointing. There's a lot of returning fare, obviously, with the raids and Challenge of Elders getting a bump up in light level to the current levels. So we're going to see a lot of older equipment come back, and that includes the exotics like Vex Methaclass and Necrochasm. All of that's great, but without that new loot to shoot for, it's rather underwhelming, as I've already mentioned. Moving right along, of course, another big part of the announcement is that the old raids are returning at higher light levels. We're seeing Vault of Glass and Crota's End coming up to 390 light. For a lot of Guardians, going back into the Vault and back into Crota's End with higher light level gear to shoot for will be, a fun return. I myself am looking forward to it. I'd love to, get myself some of that old gear that I may have deleted or no longer had space for in my vault. So being able to grind through that again will be fantastic. And it's going to be interesting to see, probably a lot of players who've never played Vault, who've never played Crota's End, go through those raids for the very first time. And having 4 relevant raids at all times, I think that adds, a lot of flavor and a lot of variety for the player base. Obviously, another huge change that's happening is going on with our directory and our weekly rituals, as Bungie is now referring to them. First off, the Crucible playlist, that's going to stay the same as it is. We've always had a Crucible playlist there for the week, and that really doesn't seem to be too much different. That's where you're going to see your Mayhems and your Iron Banners, but right next to it is a big, huge change with the weekly story mode playlist. I think for the first time in the game's entire life cycle that Bungie is really taking a stab at making the story mode relevant for players. We'll also see a weekly heroic strike, a Sivified heroic strike, and that's not really too different from where it's at now. The three modes that I mentioned, the heroic strike playlist, the weekly story mode playlist, as well as the weekly crucible playlist, all three of those will have treasures of the ages associated with them. So that's where you're going to be getting your new ornament shaders for your exotics. That's where you're going to get potentially new ships to drop. That's where you're going to get new shaders and other things like that, which will also be available to be purchased through Tess Eververse. The weekly Nightfall in and of itself is receiving, I think, really only a modest change. The Daybreaker modifier has been added into the mix. We're going to see it once every 4 weeks, and it follows the idea of the Mayhem Crucible playlist mode as of right now. So what will happen is that your cooldown time for your grenades, your melee charges, and your supers will all be much faster, so you'll be able to utilize your light and your powers much more quickly and much more efficiently when that modifier is active. In the month of July into August, for a 6-week period, the Daybreaker modifier will be available at all times. I think that that's pretty telling. I think that that will be when we are going to be seeing a lot of information about Destiny 2. And finally, just as a small aside really throughout this all, is that Challenge of the Elders will be coming back in its exact same form as it is now. However, we will see it with a 390 level light recommendation to it, so it's relevant to the current light level. But not a whole lot of changes for Challenge of the Elders. You know, overall, I believe that the update for Age of Triumph, it's not as good as the update that we saw in the Taken Spring. First off, I think really what holds this back is nothing new to grind for. In Taken Spring, we had 2 new missions, we had a new strike, we had a whole new game mode added to the mix. There were new weapons, not a lot, but there were, with the Stolen Will and Zen Meteor. Sorry, Xbox players, but it was added. You know, with this current change for Age of Triumph, we're not really seeing too much of a difference. We're seeing a lot of old gear come back, and that's great and all, but you know, I was really hoping that we would see, you know, a new sniper rifle, a new pulse rifle, even 1 or 2 new pieces to add, something to give us more of a grind for. And although the record book is huge with 13 pages, and yeah, there's some items that are going to carry over into Destiny 2, 13 pages of achievements really sound like a lot of busy work, a lot of go here, shoot these guys, no real story or quests is associated with it. No new gear you're going to pick up at the end of it. It really seems lackluster in its approach. And speaking of lackluster, I think the Daybreaker modifier to the Nightfall strikes, that screams lackluster to me. It wasn't exactly what I was anticipating. I was picturing something more along the lines of a completely new style of strike that was being added with the Mayhem modifiers that we see in PvP. I was picturing maybe more difficult and larger groups of enemies that we would see, because we would be utilizing more heavy and more light-based attacks throughout it. Sure, I mean, that's really what it is, but we're only going to see it on one strike once a month. I think that that's a little underwhelming in terms of a change that's going to want to keep me playing for the next however many months we're going to have before Destiny 2 comes out. But free is free, and I will take it. I think that there is a lot of good that this update is doing, regardless. First and foremost, the story mode, making that relevant again by adding in that weekly story mode playlist. I think that that is a fantastic idea that I would really like to see stuff like that continue into Destiny 2. However, personally, I think maybe adding matchmaking to that story mode playlist would be a great addition. Make every story mode maybe feel like a little mini strike that you're doing. I also like the fact that the old raids are coming back. I think really that is the bread and butter of this particular update, and I think it's going to see a lot of people return to Destiny to go through those raids again. You're going to see a lot of people partying up, a lot of people, you know, going every single week throughout the current raid and trying to complete the challenges that are associated with it. I also really like the Treasure of the Ages not being too cheap or chintz with how many of those treasure boxes that you're going to get every single week. The fact that they're giving us 3 every single week, very easy to achieve, is great. I think it kind of takes away the reliance on Tess Eververse to complete that. Now, if you are a completionist, there is a completions page in your Age of Triumph record book. If that's something that you're looking to do and you want to, you know, purchase that last remaining piece, you know, that's something that you can definitely go ahead and do. However, you're not reliant to complete that that way. So, you know, they've opened that up in that regards. I think that that's a fantastic change. And, you know, I also really like the t-shirt idea. I think that you know, it's a simple thing. If you know, hit your achievement, your 7 pages of achievements, you get the opportunity to have your name with the Destiny logo, be able to rock that whenever you want. I think that that is a great little addition to Destiny. We're reaching the end here, guys. It's almost over. This is the last update that we're going to see. There's no more sandbox updates after this current one that's coming up. Some slight changes that they're probably going to make. There's no more raids. There's no more content drops. This is it. Destiny's reached its end. You tell me if this is enough to keep you going until Destiny 2. Leave a comment below. Please like, share, subscribe. Thanks for stopping by.